October 10th, 1931, 2:47 p.m., Federal Courthouse, Chicago. Mike Malone's eyes locked onto the bulge under Philip DeAndrea's coat. The courtroom was packed. 200 spectators, 12 jurors, Federal Judge James Wilkerson on the bench, 15 feet from the defense table, prosecutors questioning a witness about Al Capone's spending, $400 on neckties. Everything seemed normal, except that bulge. DeAndrea sat at the defense table, 6'2", 220, Capone's bodyguard, his hand near his coat, too casual. Malone knew that posture. 2 years undercover in Capone's organization. He knew when Phil DeAndrea's hand drifted toward his coat. Something was wrong. Steel beneath fabric. A gun. 15 feet from a federal judge. Malone signaled. One finger at DeAndrea. Then his chest. Gun. Now. A marshal saw it. Moved toward the defense table. Carefully. The witness testified. 23 suits. $3,000. The jury disgusted. DeAndrea shifted, hand closer to his coat. Wilkerson unaware. The marshal reached him. Mr. DeAndrea, step to the back room. DeAndrea turned slowly. 3 seconds. Draw or comply. He looked at Capone. Capone didn't look back. DeAndrea stood. Of course. They walked out. Door closed. Inside DeAndrea's coat was a loaded .38 caliber revolver. 6 rounds. 12 more in his pockets. 18 reasons this trial might have ended differently. That gun was power. A message that Capone's reach extended everywhere. If that jury returned the wrong verdict, the message would be delivered with lead. To understand what happened next, you need to know who these men were. Because this wasn't about tax evasion. It was about whether America was a nation of laws or guns. Rewind 5 days. October 5th, 1931, 9 a.m. The trial of Alphonse Gabriel Capone begins. Public enemy number 1 walked into that federal courthouse like he owned it. For 12 years, Capone ruled Chicago through bootlegging, gambling, prostitution, and murder. The St. Valentine's Day Massacre. 7 men shot 70 times against a garage wall. Everyone knew Capone ordered it. Nobody could prove it. He was untouchable. Until he wasn't. 22 counts of tax evasion. $215,000 in unpaid taxes on over $1 million in income. The government couldn't get him for murder or bootlegging, but they could get him for math. Income minus taxes equals prison time. From 1924 to 1929, Capone earned a fortune. Gambling houses, speakeasies, brothels, protection rackets, money flowing like a river. In 6 years, he filed 0 tax returns, as if the IRS wouldn't notice. If convicted, 11 years in federal prison. At 32, he'd be 43 when released. His empire would crumble. His reign would end not with bullets, but with accountants. Judge James Herbert Wilkerson presided. 58. Known for integrity. The one judge Capone couldn't buy or threaten. Capone offered a plea deal. 2.5 years. Wilkerson rejected it. No deals. Trial. Capone's lawyers had an advantage. The jury was fixed. Names and addresses obtained. Bribes delivered. Threats made. But on opening day, Wilkerson called the bailiff. Judge Edwards has another trial. Bring me his jury panel. Take mine to him. Just like that, Capone's bought jury was gone, replaced with 12 strangers. The courtroom became a fortress. Armed marshals everywhere. 50 reporters. Spectators screened. Capone arrived in a 5-car motorcade. Death threats against prosecutors, witnesses, the judge. The jury sequestered under guard. And every day. Phil DeAndrea sat at the defense table. Philip DeAndrea. Capone's bodyguard since 1928. Office next to Capone's at the Lexington Hotel. 6'2", 220. Muscle and loyalty. He'd taken bullets for Capone before. If Capone trusted anyone, he trusted Phil DeAndrea. But Capone had a backup plan. If the trial went south, If the jury didn't fold, there was Plan B, sitting at the defense table, carrying 6 reasons why this judge might never deliver a verdict. But to understand how Mike Malone knew what to look for, you need to go back 2 years, back to when he became someone else entirely. 1929. The Treasury Department had a problem. They needed inside information on Al Capone's finances, bank records, cash flow, anything proving he earned the millions he spent. But nobody inside Capone's organization would talk. Fear kept them silent. Loyalty or bullets. It didn't matter which. So they sent in Mike Malone, Irish Catholic from New Jersey, black hair, dark eyes, olive skin. He looked Italian enough, spoke with a practiced accent, became Mike Lapito, small-time operator from Philadelphia looking for opportunities in Chicago. The Treasury Department gave him a legend, a backstory, references, everything a wise guy needed to get close to the biggest gangster in America. November 1929. Malone checked into the Lexington Hotel on South Michigan Avenue, room 724. Al Capone's headquarters, the fortress where Scarface ran his empire, and Malone walked right in. Expensive suits from Wanamaker's department store, silk underwear, monogrammed ML. He sat in the lobby for days, reading newspapers, shooting craps with Capone's men, watching who came and went. Room 724, right next door to Phil DeAndrea's room. For 18 months, they were neighbors. DeAndrea never suspected, never knew that Mike Lapito was writing down everything, every conversation, every visitor, every routine. Capone's men broke into Malone's room while he was out. Standard procedure. They checked his suits, his underwear, his mail, letters from Philadelphia contacts, written in perfect underworld slang, everything authentic, everything checking out. The invitations came slowly. Poker games first. Malone played cards with Frank Nitti, Jake Greasy Thumb Guzik, enforcers and accountants. Then dinner at the New Florence restaurant. Then the big one. Frank Nitti's birthday party at the Lexington. Capone himself attended. Machine Gun, Jack McGurn, Paul the Waiter Rika, Sam Golf Bag Hunt, The Inner Circle, and Mike Lapito, Treasury agent, sitting right there with them. Malone gathered everything: bank check signatures, cash flow records, conversations about income, about payments, about money that was never reported, the evidence that would become the tax evasion case. But he learned something else, something darker. Capone put a contract out on 4 federal officials: Frank Wilson, the investigator building the tax case; George E.Q. Johnson, the U.S. attorney prosecuting it; Special Agent A.P. Madden, investigator P.F. Roche, $25,000 per hit. 5 gunmen from New York arrived in a blue Chevrolet, ready to kill. Malone reported it immediately. 24-hour protection went into place. The gunmen waited, watched. But Capone's own men pushed back. Too risky. Too much heat. The contract was cancelled. The gunmen left town. 4 men lived because Mike Malone was in that room when the orders were given. Living next to DeAndrea, Malone learned his routines. The bodyguard always carried a weapon. Always. Discussed insurance with other outfit members. If things go wrong, we handle it. Malone filed it away. A detail. A warning. October 9th, 1931. 4 days into Capone's trial. Malone's cover was blown. 2 years of work. Exposed. The Treasury Department pulled him from undercover status. Too dangerous now. That afternoon, Malone stepped into an elevator at the federal building. The doors opened. Al Capone stood inside with his lawyers. Their eyes met. Capone smiled. "The only thing that fooled me was your looks. You took your chances, and I took mine. I lost." But Capone didn't know how much Malone had learned. Didn't know about the notebooks, the records, the testimony waiting. And Malone hadn't forgotten about DeAndrea's habits, about insurance, about what happens when things go wrong. Malone was officially off the case. But on October 10th, sitting in that courtroom, he was still doing what he did best: watching. And that afternoon, he noticed something that made his blood run cold. Phil DeAndrea wasn't just watching the trial, he was preparing for something. October 5th through 10th, 6 days of testimony. 6 days of watching Al Capone's empire crumble one receipt at a time. 6 days of Phil DeAndrea sitting at that defense table, hand always near his coat. The intimidation started before the trial began. Eddie O'Hare, dog track operator who worked for the outfit, warned federal investigators. Capone's men had the jury list, names and addresses of jurors 30 through 39, bribes delivered to their homes, $500 here, $1,000 there, enough to buy loyalty, enough to buy acquittal. Judge Wilkerson destroyed that plan on opening day, swapped the entire jury panel with Judge Edwards. Capone's face went white when he realized his bought jury was sitting in someone else's courtroom. 12 strangers now held his fate. 12 men he couldn't touch, couldn't buy, couldn't threaten. But Capone adapted. Always did. Phil DeAndrea appeared at the defense table every single day, never more than 10 feet from Capone, eyes scanning the courtroom, watching the prosecutors, watching the witnesses, watching the judge, hand always near his coat. A reminder, a threat, a promise. Other outfit members filled the spectator seats. Johnny Torrio, the man who'd given Capone his start. Louis LaCava, Capone's suspected partner. Silent men in expensive suits. Their presence alone sent a message. We're watching. We're here. We remember faces. The witnesses felt it. Fred Reese, star witness for the prosecution, had been hiding in South America for months, too scared to stay in Chicago, too scared to testify. But the government needed him, needed his testimony about the cashier's checks. $150,000 made out to J.C. Dunbar, a fake name Reese used to funnel gambling profits. October 8th, Reese took the stand. His hands shook. His voice wavered. He testified about writing checks, about cashing them, about money flowing through Capone's Cicero gambling houses, the subway, the Hawthorne, the radio, and the entire time. Phil DeAndrea stared at him, never blinked, never looked away, just stared. The message was clear. We know who you are. We know where you'll be. We remember. Other witnesses refused to appear. Too scared. Too smart. They'd seen what happened to people who talked. They'd heard about the Valentine's Day massacre. 7 men against a wall. 70 rounds fired. The price of crossing Al Capone. October 10th. Saturday. Half-day session. The prosecution was presenting evidence of Capone's lifestyle. Proof of income. If a man spends a fortune, he must have earned a fortune. And if he earned it, he owes taxes on it. The testimony was devastating. $401 on neckties and handkerchiefs in 1927. 23 suits. 3 topcoats. An overcoat. $3,715. Christmas, 1928. 30 diamond-encrusted gold belt buckles for his friends. $12 per pair for glove silk underwear. $27 for monogrammed shirts. The jury, simple men in simple suits, looked disgusted. They made $2,000 a year. Capone spent that on shirts. Judge Wilkerson took notes. His face revealed nothing, but everyone could see it. The evidence was overwhelming. The verdict was inevitable. Guilty. Phil DeAndrea felt it too. He was more tense than usual, whispering to Capone's lawyers between testimonies. His hand kept drifting to his coat, again and again, a nervous habit, or preparation. Mike Malone watched from the prosecution area. Something was different. DeAndrea's movements, his positioning, the way he scanned the room. After 2 years living next to this man, Malone knew his patterns, and this wasn't normal. The prosecution was destroying Capone's defense. The jury was leaning toward conviction. Capone's confidence, that swagger he'd carried into the courthouse 6 days earlier, was cracking. his nervous laughter during testimony, his pale face when damaging evidence was presented. He was losing. For the first time in his life, Al Capone was losing. At 2:47 p.m., as a Marshall Field's department store manager testified about custom shirt orders, Mike Malone noticed something. The way DeAndrea shifted, the weight pulling at his coat, the outline that shouldn't be there. And Malone knew. After 2 years in the belly of the beast, he knew exactly what that outline meant. Malone's hand moved, one finger, pointing, then touching his chest. The signal every federal marshal knew. Gun, target, now. A marshal saw it, started moving along the back wall. Slow, casual, can't cause panic. 200 people in this courtroom. If DeAndrea draws, if he decides this is the moment, how many die before it's over? The marshal reached the defense table, leaned down, whispered, "Mr. DeAndrea, please step to the back room." DeAndrea's head turned. His eyes, cold and empty, met the marshal's. His hand hovered near his coat. 3 seconds. Draw or comply. Kill or surrender. His eyes flicked to Capone. Capone sat motionless, watching the witness. No nod. No signal. His face unreadable. Either he didn't know what was happening, or he knew exactly and chose silence. DeAndrea stood slowly. Of course. They walked to the back room. Door closed. Away from the crowd. Away from the judge. The marshal's voice was firm. "Remove your coat, please." DeAndrea smiled, defiant. "I have a permit." The marshal's hands stayed ready. Then the door opened. Mike Malone walked in. "You remember me, Phil." DeAndrea's smile died. His eyes widened. "Mike Lupito, room 724. The neighbor, the card player, the friend, a federal agent." "You," DeAndrea whispered. The marshal removed DeAndrea's coat, reached inside, pulled out a .38 caliber Smith & Wesson revolver, fully loaded, 6 rounds in the cylinder. He checked DeAndrea's pockets. Loose ammunition, 12 additional rounds, 18 bullets total. The gun was clean, well oiled, the smell of gun oil fresh, recently maintained, recently fired, maybe. Practice. "I have a bailiff permit," DeAndrea said. Produced a document. The marshal read it. Expired. 8 months ago. "I protect Mr. Capone." From who? Everyone. Including the judge. Silence. Word spread through the courthouse like fire. Whispers. Gasps. Proceedings paused. A clerk informed Judge Wilkerson in chambers. The judge returned to the bench, his face stone, called both attorneys to sidebar. The conversation lasted 30 seconds. Wilkerson's voice carried across the courtroom. "Mr. DeAndrea will be jailed without bail. He will remain in custody throughout this trial." Capone's lawyers stood, objected, denied. Wilkerson's gavel came down. "The court has ruled." Federal marshals entered. 4 of them. Handcuffs clicked around DeAndrea's wrists. They walked him through the courtroom, past the defense table, past spectators, past reporters already scribbling notes. DeAndrea's eyes found Capone, held his gaze, looking for something. Approval, understanding orders. Capone watched, said nothing, his face blank. The door closed. DeAndrea was gone. Reporters rushed to telephones. The story hit the evening papers within hours. Capone bodyguard arrested with gun in court. The jury was sequestered, newspapers censored, but one small item slipped through. 5 lines buried in an unrelated column. Some jurors saw it. Guards panicked. The item was destroyed. Too late. The jury knew. Security tripled immediately. Every person entering the courthouse now thoroughly searched. Makeshift metal detectors. Pat-downs. No exceptions. Judge Wilkerson received death threats that night. Continued anyway. And across town, in a Cook County jail cell, Phil DeAndrea sat alone. The gun was gone. His freedom was gone. But Al Capone was still on trial. The question remained. Had removing that gun changed everything, or had getting caught changed nothing? Because in 7 days, a jury would deliver a verdict, and depending on what that verdict said, DeAndrea carrying a gun into that courtroom might have been the smartest thing Capone ever ordered, or the dumbest thing DeAndrea ever did. October 11th, Sunday. The federal courthouse locked down. Security planning. What happened on Saturday couldn't happen again. October 12th. Monday. Trial resumed. New protocols. Every person entering the building thoroughly searched. Pat-downs. Bag checks. Armed guards at every entrance. Snipers positioned on surrounding rooftops. The courthouse had become a fortress. Al Capone walked in that morning looking different. Shaken. His insurance policy was gone. Phil DeAndrea sat in a jail cell instead of at the defense table. Capone's nervous laughter echoed during testimony. Some thought he looked defeated. Others thought he was calculating his next move. The prosecution pushed hard. Elmer Irie, head of the Treasury Department's intelligence unit, took the stand, testified about the 2-year investigation, the paper trail, bank records, ledgers seized from Capone's gambling houses, cash flow evidence, Capone's lavish lifestyle, 0 tax returns filed. The math was simple, devastating. Eddie O'Hare's information had been crucial. The dog track operator who warned about the fixed jury, who provided names, addresses, details about Capone's operations. He'd pay for that information later. 1939. Gunned down in his car. Days before Capone's release from prison. The outfit always remembered. The defense tried everything. Claimed Capone borrowed money for his lifestyle. Suggested the income belonged to others. Argued the government hadn't proven Capone personally received the money. The jury didn't buy it. 12 simple men looking at receipts for $12 silk underwear, $27 monogrammed shirts, diamond belt buckles. They knew. Everyone knew. October 17th, 1931. The jury deliberated. Hours passed. Then the door opened. They'd reached a verdict. Guilty. 5 of 22 counts. Capone's face went white. For the first time in his life, people saw Al Capone truly scared. October 24th. Sentencing day. Judge Wilkerson looked down from the bench. 11 years in federal prison. $50,000 in fines. $7,692 in court costs. $215,000 plus interest in back taxes. 11 years. Capone had expected 2, maybe 3. He got 11. The longest sentence ever handed down for tax evasion. His empire would crumble. His reign was over. Phil DeAndrea received 6 months for contempt of court. Served his time in Cook County Jail. Released March 1932. Continued working for the outfit. 1943. Convicted with others of extorting $1 million from the movie industry. Imprisoned again. Released 1947. Died in Los Angeles. 1952. Broke. Forgotten. Mike Malone testified about his undercover operation. The DeAndrea arrest was his final act in the Capone case. Later worked the Lindbergh kidnapping investigation. The elevator encounter with Capone became legend. You took your chances, and I took mine. I lost. Mutual respect between cop and criminal. Judge Wilkerson received death threats for years. Never backed down. Died 1948. Natural causes. Remembered as the judge who broke Al Capone. The trial proved something America needed to see. Organized crime bosses weren't above the law. Tax evasion became the weapon used against untouchable criminals. A model for future mob prosecutions. The IRS became the department gangsters feared most. But it all started with one moment. October 10th, 1931. 2:47 p.m. A gun in a courtroom, and the federal agent who noticed it.